Welcome to Traveling Down Biblical Archaeology for the 21st Century. I'm Gary Byers, Dr. Stephen Collins, and we're discussing the concept of Sodom Derangement Syndrome. This is essay number 7. Can you give it to us, please?
Yeah, and of course the whole title of that is Treating Sodom Derangement Syndrome, because we don't want you to just have it. We want you to be able to get cured of it. And so how do we do that? So this is symptom number 7. The ignorance of or ignoring the facts of the Genesis Sodom text regarding the city itself and associated events, and the archaeological data commensurate with those texts. So being able to understand all of that. So a lot of people are just ignorant of, or they ignore it. It's two different things. The treatment is a good dose of textual understanding about the details of the city of Sodom, along with an adequate understanding of the relevant archaeological data that can fix it.
Okay, let's do it.
So it starts out as a real event, this destruction. And once the destruction is over, it becomes the principal, or one of the principal metaphors in the Bible for divine judgment.
Now, does the Bible put it into a cultural, historical context that's easy for us to grasp?
Well, actually it does, because when you look at Genesis 10, what it says about the Canaanite territory is that it extends down the coast and then jumps to the valley.
Yes.
And by the way, this is reinforced, that's Genesis 10, it's reinforced in the book of Joshua, where Joshua mentions that the Canaanites are living along the coast and in the Jordan Valley, and the Amorites in the hill country.
Yeah.
So that particular situation is what we discover in the archaeological record. The valley people, now the coastal people are obvious, but the valley people, you would expect those on the east side of the Jordan River, in the valley, like us, Tal Hammam, across from Jericho, Sodom across from Jericho, that being across the river, there might be some distinction in the culture, because people think of the Jordan River as the dividing line.
That's the way it was in antiquity, even into the 20th century. That was standard.
Yeah, so when you draw hard borders, that's a pretty hard line to miss. I mean, it's just right there. It's the river, and you have to cross it. You have to ford it. But what's interesting, culturally, that's not the case. It's not a hard border. In fact, the valley towns going up the Transjordan side, like Tal Hammam, of course, all of our satellites, Kitanu, Nimreen, going up north, they all have affinity to the Canaanite sphere. So the Canaanites are in the valley, which tells us that the hard border, the harder border, is the Rift Valley itself, not the river that goes down the middle of it.
And harder border, crossing the Jordan is, other than in flood stage, is nothing. Today it's nothing. Even in antiquity, wouldn't have been that much. But going up that mountain,
going up to the scarp,
huge, hard border.
You're starting 1,000 feet below sea level or more, okay, and then you're mounting up to 2,500 feet or so above sea level. So you're doing at least a 3,500 feet vertical in maybe what, a couple of miles? I mean, so it's really going up steep, and so that's the real border culturally. So the cultures that are in the highlands on the top of that scarp are very different than the ones in the valley, which are typically Canaanite, and those up there, of course, the Moabites and the Ammonites and other cultures. And so the Bible is very clear about that the Canaanites are in the valley. Doesn't say on the west side of the river of the Jordan. It says they occupy the valley, and what's interesting about that is the cities that mark that extent of the Canaanites are Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, unto Lasha or Laish in the north. In other words, chasing it from the top of the Dead Sea up to the headwaters, so to speak,
the Jordan.
Of the Jordan.
All right, so that, and that's found in Genesis chapter 10. We call that the Table of Nations. You like to talk about one particular passage of the Bible that just nails the geography of Sodom, and you've talked about it already, but just remind us of that.
Yeah, that's the Genesis 13 passage, Genesis 13, 1 through 12. That's the map.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's such a good map that finding Sodom was not terribly difficult. It was as easy as someone dropping a map of California on your lap and say, okay, take me to Los Angeles. Could you do it? Yeah, you just follow the map. Well, that's how easy it was to find the location of Sodom. I'm not going to speculate here as to why other people in the past had such a difficulty locating Sodom, trying to put it toward the south into the Dead Sea, sort of making up their own etiological legend about the south into the Dead Sea, which, by the way, even today, except for the tomato farms, which are all being done by irrigation, which you couldn't do in antiquity, that area down there looks like someplace God would have destroyed. You know, frankly, it's pretty toasty and salty and ugly down there.
Yeah.
So I can see why people would have migrated there before they knew anything about archaeology, before they knew anything about the ancient world. In the 19th century, they were going down there. Now, I will say that the vast majority of the 19th century explorers who paid attention to the Bible put Sodom and Gomorrah north of the Dead Sea.
Yeah, they really did.
Yeah.
So the Bible's pretty clear about where it is culturally, geographically. The Bible talks about the people. The men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked, as some translations put it in English. What's that about?
Well, that's always been interesting to me. As you struggle with what the text says and you look at the archaeology, you look at the culture of the area, what's interesting to me about that is that the Canaanites cannot exactly be accused of being righteous folks. I mean, in terms of their religion, I mean, they were often sacrificing their children, they were sacrificing people from time to time. They had temple prostitutes. Acts of worship often included sex acts with male and female prostitutes from the temple. And so as you look at the Canaanite culture, you wonder what in the world there was about Sodom that was worse than that. And God doesn't grade on a curve. I think. I think the Bible's pretty clear about that. So when God gets crossways with a culture, you might say, and determines to eliminate it, when that happens, there must be some very distinct reason why God didn't want that culture propagating itself into the future.
And most of us, as we're listening to you, say, well, I know what that's all about. And yet, you might be surprised at what God actually says.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we all know what the obvious answer to that is. And we take that answer from the story toward Genesis, going back to Genesis 18 and continuing on into Genesis 19, the story of the messengers, the Yahwistic, you might say, messengers coming to Lot and his family and telling them what's going to happen, and Abraham sort of, up on the hill opposite near Hebron, making some deals, trying to make deals with God as well. If you find 50 good men, or what about 40, 30, 12, down to 10? What if you could just find a handful, just 5, whatever, was that the end number? I think it was 5. And if you could just find 5 people, and God couldn't. There were not 5 people that he could then decide not to destroy the city. But that little thing with the angels where the men surrounded the house of Lot, and they said, send the men out that we might know them, and we might say that's the biblical know, K-N-O-W, to know them. And but what was that all about? Well, I think it connects to some of the Minoan practices that came into the city. And we know that the Minoans were pretty influential in that whole region. But There is a place in the Bible where from God's mouth to our ear, except with God's mouth to Ezekiel's ear, the book of Ezekiel,
Yep.
chapter 16, he explains why he destroyed Sodom. And the answer that most everybody would give about why God destroyed Sodom is not in the list. So what does that list say? So go check it out, but let's just kind of review. Okay, they were haughty, arrogant. They were overfed. They didn't take care of the needy, the widow and the orphan. And it says, on the trailing of that, it says, they did what was detestable in my sight. They did detestable things before me. Now, it doesn't say what all those detestable things were, and there might be a whole list of those that God did, but the big ones were that they were wealthy, they were arrogant, they weren't taking care of the needs and paying attention to the needs of the needy, and because of that, God determined to destroy them.
And this is Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 49 and 50. You can read it for yourself. So God was really ticked off with them more than all the other Canaanites and Ammonites and Amorites and all these folks. He was really ticked off with them.
All the detestable things that Sodom may have been doing, the Canaanites and the Amorites and all those folks were doing the same thing.
Yes.
And so if God would have destroyed them for the detestable things only, then he'd have destroyed the whole region, maybe the whole world. By the way, he did that once upon a time, a little bit earlier.
Said he wouldn't do it again.
Said he wouldn't do it again in that way. But so in Ezekiel 16, it records for us that there were some reasons. Sodom was big. I mean, it had a reason for thinking that it was indestructible. Because when most all the other cities and city-states in the southern Levant went belly up around 2500 BC, they really thrived right through it. They existed right through it. That area, the valley, went right through that terrible climate downturn with flying colors. They got through it, and for about 500 years, they're the only major city-state in the whole southern Levant. That's incredible. And so they I think they're looking at themselves going, well, we have no need to be afraid of anything. We have everything we need. We're rich. We're wealthy. In fact, they had so much wealth, it didn't even really bother them when Chedorlaomer showed up to collect a debt all the way from Elam in Mesopotamia, and they had stopped paying their tribute, whatever that relationship was. They had stopped paying it, and when he showed up, it looks like Chedorlaomer didn't destroy Sodom in the cities of the plain. He got paid off.
That's kind of how it seems that probably was the case.
Yeah, he got paid off because they had it, and they gave some to him, and they made him happy. He was probably tired and wanted to go home anyway. And so they took off, and of course Abraham got wind of it because they had captured Lot. And in fact, I kind of think the king of Sodom said, why don't you take this guy? This guy's kind of a pain. And so take him with you. And so Lot caught up with him. And what did he do? He defeated Chedorlaomer, and he brought back all the spoils of war that Chedorlaomer had taken and brought him back to the city of Sodom and gave King Bera all of his stuff back. Yeah. And of course, Bera liked that a lot. He seems to now have wanted to bring on Abraham maybe as his protector, and not this knucklehead Lot who failed and didn't protect him very well. And so I think he's pretty impressed with what Abraham did, and he's trying to offer him a deal, it seems like to me, and Abraham turns him down because he's already got a deal working with Melchizedek over at Jerusalem.
I know, we just got 2 minutes left, and what you just said, people don't read in the Bible. Really quickly, what's this protector deal? We got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Abraham is what we call a Habiru. Sounds like Hebrew, doesn't it? But these are people, sort of multi-ethnic groups of folks that get together for their own personal protection and benefit. They're not like Shasu Bedouin. They're not the typical herds people.
Right.
They are warlike somewhat. And of course, Abraham has a standing army of over 300 men, and he's obviously running protection for the city of Jerusalem. And so these Habiru warriors, and Abraham being a Habiru warlord in a sense, was able to become a mercenary in trade for being able to run his flocks and herds on the Jerusalem city-state lands.
All right, you can read about this Abraham the Habiru as well as Abraham the Hebrew in the volume that you and Joe Holden wrote.
The Harvest Handbook.
Harvest Handbook of Bible Lands. You can read about Abraham the Habiru in there. So we're going to stop because we got more to talk about, but we're going to stop here and we're going to pick it up again next time because we want to continue the concept of just understanding what the Bible does and doesn't say about our guys in the story of the city of Sodom. Thanks for joining us. Come back again and we'll finish this one next time.